everything.
Do you know that guy?
You don't like being filmed, do you?
I don't care.
Oh, you don't care. You don't care.
Sorry, what's
Why is this loony?
I don't know what he's all about. You
have
don't want to talk?
Yes, you do. Come on.
I'm camera shy.
What do you mean? Okay, it's just let it be seen by 20,000 people. Half of them will be your friends at school.
They're all going to be default against me.
Base, default base, mate. No. 1 second.
Yeah.
You know this guy?
No,
I don't know him either. I don't know him either.
Stable.
You're talking about the definition of God, basically, right?
So I'm saying that God is a very good explanation for the complexity, design, and engineering we see even in simple cells. As I was saying recently in a publication by a biochemist, he was saying that the human cell now is so complex.
I know. I'm a biologist, by the way.
Okay.
I'm very interested in the complexity of life.
I'm just telling the camera.
Oh, right.
I know you know. The best analogy he could think was by our very latest computers in terms of the incredibly complex functioning of the cells. And I think, and the professor didn't say this, this is me saying this, the best explanation for intelligence and engineering and design in the universe is an intelligent designer of the universe, because these things clearly did not come about by random, blind, purposeless chance. They're too contrived, too complex, and fruitful for a purpose.
Okay, so if you say purposeless, by being able to make that statement, you should probably be able to give me a purpose for life, right? What's the purpose of life?
Well, which life? Human life?
Well, what's the purpose of this creation?
Well, the purpose of human life and all animal life is to worship God. The Quran talks about this. It says that inanimate objects, even they offer their praise to God in ways we don't understand. We don't necessarily understand how the plants and the birds offer praise and worship to God, but they do according to the Quran. And I think in some inarticulate way they do offer glory to God, who made them and sustains them every day. I think it's a very beautiful way of seeing the world.
Doesn't explain anything for me.
It's not an explanation, it's a description of how the whole creation praises God in mysterious ways that we as humans can't understand. That's what the Quran says. The Quran's revelation from God. It gives me information about things I don't know myself.
So here's an interesting point. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, assuming there isn't a purpose, which is what you're doing.
Well, maybe I do. I'm just asking. He said there is a purpose, so I want to see what it is.
According to the Quran.
Well, it depends on your understanding. I think that you manufacture the purpose.
Yeah. So it's
just
individual.
very basically, that.
So how do you define it yourself?
I'm not going to get into that.
You don't want to get into that?
No, because it's not.
Oh, just curious.
It takes a long time to elucidate. I don't have a philosophy or narrative that I want to give other people.
Yeah, that's fine.
Really. So that's why I can't condense it and throw it at people. So yeah. Anyway, more or less. So here's an idea. When we talk about other beings, we talk about gods. If I could say this, we can't really observe God. I mean, you could say maybe there's forces and we can attribute that to an idea of another being or a god, right? But what about this? Because we can imagine gods, because we can imagine the complexity, because we can imagine the attributes, the abilities, and we can actually manifest some of those things into reality, for me that makes us the gods that we imagine, if that makes any sense. I'm only seeing humans. If humans have got free will and we're taking actions in the world, we're making philosophy, we're trying to understand, we're imagining attributes, we can actually be a part of those attributes. It seems that we are the God. That's what I think, man, basically.
Okay, the Quran says, in one of the shorter surahs, it says that there is, Surah 112, that God is one, He's unique, He's the uncaused cause of all that is, and then it says He is neither born nor has He begotten. There is nothing comparable to Him. There is nothing comparable to God in the
Not even the
universe
consciousness that imagines Him.
So it says nothing comparable.
I don't care what it says.
His consciousness, well, I do. His consciousness is so different from our consciousness that to talk of in the same breath, although we can
do you have evidence of that?
Of what?
Of the consciousness being so different from ours?
Yeah, the evidence is in God's own speech in the Quran.
but it's a man who wrote it, right?
No, Muhammad was an illiterate guy, trader. He had no ability to read and write, according to historical sources. He didn't say that he wrote the Quran. He said that the Archangel Gabriel came to him in a series of visions and so on, and it was written down by scribes, the words that he was given to say. So those words contain the speech of God, as far as Muslims.
I see. Yeah. Have you ever heard of the phenomena of what do you call it? Schizophrenia.
Yes.
Right.
And your point is what? That's not an argument, it's a statement. Have I heard of a medical condition? Yes.
It's implying an argument.
Well, would you care to actually make it? Because
sure.
At the moment,
it's the idea that people, to this very day, people hear voices in their heads, and it can be quite articulate, it could be actually beautiful, or it could be absolute nonsense. And people write it down, people become prophets, people make cults, and they claim it's from the divine source. This happens often. So for me, I would need very sure evidence that he wasn't schizophrenic, for example, because it's something that happens to people.
Tell me about the medical condition of schizophrenia, the proper medical condition of schizophrenia, not the layman's kind of stereotype of what schizophrenia means. Well, what does schizophrenia actually mean as a medical condition?
I'm not a psychologist, so I can't.
You mentioned it, so I didn't.
Oh, right, so I have to be able to absolutely define it via the medical dictionary for my arguments invalid?
Because I'm aware that doctors often complain that schizophrenia, the way it's properly understood, is not the actual medical condition. It's a kind of a layman's stereotype.
So well, considering we're both laymen in this regard, we could talk about the phenomena that we do know is that some people do hear voices in their heads. It's indisputable.
Right. Well, Muhammad didn't hear voices in his head. That's not what our sources say. The sources say in the earliest incident, the Archangel Gabriel came to him. And in fact, wherever he looked on the horizon, he saw Gabriel. This is
hallucination.
Well, that's what you may believe, but
no, I don't. Maybe it happened. I actually think there's other realms other than this one. So
you do?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think this is infinitely
well, you're halfway
complex.
there to Islam then, because that's exactly what.
There's a lot more objections, but
that's what we believe that there are. It's called the unseen realm. No. So, and the Quran talks about it. Sort of back at the beginning, it talks about those who believe in the unseen realm. The book of the Quran is for those who believe in the unseen. So God speaks about the unseen realm to us. He provides information. He says there are angels, there are jinn, there are things we can't see that go on. Why should we know everything and be able to see everything?
I'm very along with that idea because it's so complex and we've got limited perception.
And the explanation, if you like, of God as an explanation is a very powerful one, increasingly so. It's not that science is retreating from this as an explanation. It's becoming more and more likely, given what we understand about the material world, that the creative intelligence which exists, I think.
I'm open to the possibility, by the way. I'm not a hard atheist or a hard rationalist either. I'm open to the possibility of that. My main objections is when people want to bring things forward as it is the absolute unquestioned, undoubtable truth. I understand why that occurs for the sociological perspective towards organising society, but I have issues with it philosophically.
But coming back to the schizophrenic thing, you see, I don't doubt there have been some mad people who proclaim themselves to be messengers or prophets or ecstatic seers and visionaries.
Yeah, right.
In fact, even in the Prophet's own time, I mean, he feared that because he had seen Gabriel, that he might be one of them. He says in Ibn Ishaq, the earliest biography of Muhammad, he rushed back to Khadija, his first wife, and saying, I don't want to become like one of these despised ecstatics who have visions.
Right.
And she assured him that he wasn't, and there were several reasons that she gave that he was that God was good and would not do that to a man like Muhammad, who was honest and truthful, a man of integrity.
But God would do it to another type of man.
Wouldn't do it to him because he wouldn't deceive him because he was an honourable and good man. Then they went to a guy called Waraka, who was a Christian scribe, who actually heard what happened to Muhammad, and the Christian scribe said, you have been visited by the same spirit, he called it, by Gabriel, who visited Moses. And he actually identified it. So he was tying it into previous revelation against the prophets before, Moses. So I think that's a wonderful way of putting it, that the same power, the same force, the same angels revealed itself to Muhammad was the same that had previously visited Jesus and Moses and other prophets. So it wasn't just a random thing. So I thought you were going to say about Joseph Smith and the Mormons. Well, what about them? Why don't it's the same thing?
Yeah.
Because that would be the opposite example. Because what Mormons believe, as far as I understand it, is so different, radically different from what Jesus taught and Moses taught and Muhammad taught. They believe in many, many gods. They believe that God lives on a planet, I kid you not, with his wife in the universe. I mean, I know it sounds weird, but go and check it out.
Well, here's another
These are
idea, because
weird
I want to
ideas.
interject and so
We
we have a
don't
proper
believe that.
discussion.
Jesus never taught that. Moses never
Yeah,
taught that.
that's fine. That's fine.
So these are false. He's a false prophet.
What I do want to say is something else that's interesting is that you say it's ludicrous that the idea that God's a man on a planet with a wife.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at it from another.
God's not a man.
Let's look at it from another perspective. Is that for when I hear people talking about God and the attributes of God, and then I read or hear people telling me this is the words of God talking about the acts of man and telling him to do things, telling him not to do things, and it seemingly being angry and wrathful in certain situations and giving blessings and giving forgiveness in other situations, it seems that God embodies the attributes of man, right?
No.
Why would God have vengeance? This is an attribute of man.
I see.
Why would God have mercy? This is an attribute of man. Should it not surpass?
It's an attribute
these
of God. It's the other way.
things?
It's precisely the other way around. That mercy, at the beginning of every chapter of the Quran, apart from one, it says, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate.
I'm aware.
Good. So the point is that we as created beings, if you like, participate or actualize in a very tiny way in relationships with other people, mercy and compassion. And we're told to do so by the Quran. If you read the Quran over and over again, it says, give charity, care for the poor, the disadvantaged, don't swindle your neighbour, be good to the widow, be good to the orphan. Over and over.
It says some other stuff too, though, right? It says some a little bit less savoury stuff too, right? As the other books also do.
There is talk about war and conduct in war, but what I'm talking about, the overall character of the Quran is full of spiritual nourishment, spiritual.
Can I comment? I read the first 70 pages of the Quran, in fact, and I stopped on almost every. Well, I'm not going to be able to. I can't quote anything, but the first thing that I noticed from it was it was very, very insistent on giving me a big list of who's going to hell.
There's no list of anyone's going to hell in the Quran.
Yeah, come on.
No,
don't need to play word games.
No,
I'm trying to say.
It says there's no list of people going to hell in the Quran.
I'm not saying there is.
I thought you just
I'm
said
saying. Whatever, man.
Okay,
Fuck it,
alright.
I'm out.
So what happened there? So he's making accusations about the Quran which aren't true. So end of story.
That's what I said. I'm not saying there's like Pavlov's going to hell. Pavlov, there's a list. So I have to conform with your actualization of
It actually
ideas.
says it read 70 pages and it has the lists of people who are going to hell. And I said no, it doesn't.
That's
And you-
not what I
and you
said.
walked off.
Look, this is why I'm not going to talk to you. Bro, I'm not continuing the convo. I'm not continuing the convo. I'm not continuing the convo.
Why?
Because I don't want to. I don't think it's productive.
I mean, it's meaningless if we have wordplays instead of actually trying
It wasn't
to
well played.
discern
He was making claims
the
about
meaning
the
of the
Quran,
question
which
that we're talking about.
when challenged about, he ran off.
What?
They ain't got truth.
Ain't got truth. Who has truth?
No, I'm saying if you have truth, then why can't you just continue the convo?
No, because I have ideas. I don't have truth.
I know, so they just discuss the ideas so other people can make.
I'm not, but I want to do it with somebody I'm able to have a decent discussion.
You can't. We've been
It's
having
hard
a
to
decent
discuss
conversation
something
for
when
half
the
an
other
hour.
person keeps
We've been having a
falling back and
conversation
keeps
for
running
half
away
an
from the
hour.
question.
Has it been a good discussion? Last half an hour, 30 minutes.
Well, yes.
Right.
But things can terminate.
But why did you terminate a good discussion?
I already gave you my rationale.
Okay.
I don't need to justify
I don't know.
myself to
I
anybody, by
wasn't
the way.
listening to the whole conversation. I just listened partially to
Right.
it.
Okay.
But what I do know is that sometimes people try to go around the question without actually answering any of the questions you're asking.
If he is
guess
saying
that's
which he is,
the
that people get sent to hell in the Quran, he's absolutely right. It does say that. And there is actions. There are some actions in this life that will be punished by hell in the afterlife. And you mentioned, I want to pick up on what you were saying about vengeance, the God of vengeance. Justice is a very important point in the Quran. He's turning his back on me.
Yeah, but look, isn't it?
Sorry, if I just the vengeance. I'll just address the camera. If he's now.
I mean,
cleaning
he's
himself
just
over
tired.
there.
I can understand him. I can
So
understand.
he was saying about God being a God of vengeance, but it's all to do with justice and retribution. It's not a capricious attack. So it's a shame that he's run away like that. And
He's not running away, man.
he's over there now.
Bro, he's tired of trying to go to the question, and I felt this many times. I'm trying to actually go to the center of a question, and no, wait. And people
What
keep,
is the center of the question?
keep attacking me with these stupid jokes like, "Are you sure you exist? Are you sure you're here? Are you sure you're a man and not a woman?"
So what is it? What is the question that he was?
It kills the conversation.
So I killed the debate, but when he said he's read 70 pages of the Quran, there are lists of people who are going to hell, and I say, no there aren't. They get a Quran out, where does it say it? And he walks off. That's what happened, literally what happened.
Well, he won't remember the exact people who went to hell.
But there are no lists in the Quran at all.
I don't
And what I'm
remember
saying is,
lists
there's
of
simply
people
no
going to
list
hell.
of people who are going to hell in the Quran. It's simply not
It
there.
doesn't matter. It's just
It
a
doesn't
small
matter.
thing. Why would you
I
ask
agree
him
it's a
to
small
give
thing.
you the
Then why
list?
did he walk off? Why did he walk
I
off?
don't know. I didn't. As I said, I didn't listen to the whole conversation.
Yeah, but you wish
I
to
just
the
know
end
the
of it.
basics of the conversation.
I don't know, he's obviously got issues.
I
So what
mean,
did you think?
issues. I don't know how to make a judgment out of this because I
but you saw the whole- what do you
attention
think?
for the whole thing.
I don't know. He
I don't
called
think
you
he
a
did.
liar.
Did you?
Yeah, he called him a
You?
liar.
Who?
No,
He called him a liar. Well,
What was I lying about?
you said no, it's not true. About the 70 pages, about...
Oh, did you call me a liar? Well, I'm afraid he's put charitably.
Liar, but why
Okay,
I'm
Paul,
lying?
let me ask you something real quick.
Okay, why?
Oh, I know why I walked away, because he was exposed, basically. He called me a
Exposed?
liar. Yes, he called me a liar, but actually...
What was exposed in
is-
him? What did you expose?
I'm trying to explain.
Okay, go ahead.
He made a claim which was false. I called him out on it. He called me a liar, and I said, no, I got him a crime. Where are these lists? And he said, right, I'm off. Yeah. So basically,
okay.
it was a car crash, and his ego was such that he felt he had to walk away because there are no lists in the Quran. He thought he could get away with that. He called me a liar, and of course now he raised the stakes so high, all he could do was walk off. So I think it's a demonstration of ego there. Her ego that he had basically been exposed as someone who was
Sure.
talking out of his
Now,
backside.
Paul, let's
Is that
see a
fair?
parallelism between the situation and something else. Do you remember the time when I told you let's talk about contradictions in the Quran?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you did?
Yeah.
You didn't want to talk about the contradictions.
Do you remember why? Do you remember why?
Why didn't you talk?
Do you remember why?
I remember because you wanted to talk about the existence of God, which is something completely
I
different.
want to talk about you and your agnosticism.
No, bro. I'm not the question here.
No,
You were
that's what
talking
I
about
said.
the Quran,
That's what I said.
and I know that you are
Show me
very
a
often
Quran.
insincere when you talk.
now
Because
you-
I was trying to. No, bro. You attacked him. Now I'm gonna attack you because you're talking. You're saying he ran away. You're saying he.
Let's talk about the contradictions now. Let's talk about the contradictions.
His ego got
Let's
in the
talk
way
about
or
the
whatever.
contradictions now. Show me
You
a
want to talk
contradiction.
about the contradictions?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't have my Quran today because I don't bring
Ah.
it all the time.
Well, that's
but
not very
I have
helpful.
something. No, but I have something else. I have my KGB folder.
Aha. So which part of the world were you from originally?
Which part of?
The world, the globe.
Of what?
You said you've got your KGB folder. You're clearly not English. Where are you from?
Jeez, my blood is home. I think I told you already.
Well, remind me. I've forgotten.
Ukraine.
Ah, so you're from Russia then.
Yeah, of course. Hilarious.
Does everyone say that to you?
You're a funny
I'm
guy,
sorry.
Paul.
That was a very
You're
bad
yeah,
joke.
you're a funny guy.
Right.
Now,
Far away.
Let's go for any of them. Let's go for this one. I like this one. What
okay.
is man created from? Quran.
Yeah.
Chapter 19, verse 67.
Yeah.
Nothing. Chapter 96, verse 2. Blood clot. Chapter 21, verse 30. Water. Chapter 16, verse 4. A small seed. Chapter 15, verse 26. Clay and mud. Chapter 3, verse 59. Dust. Chapter 11, verse 61. Earth. Which of them is the creation of?
They're all true in their way. They're all true. Let me explain how. When God says, like in Genesis, creating Adam and Eve out of the earth, it's a way of speaking of their material, lowly origin. They're just made from stuff on the ground. They're made from matter. If you want to get very technical, there's a bit there that says
Nothing, blood clot, water,
blood clot.
small seed,
so blood,
clay and
then
mud,
you get blood
dust,
clot, which is a more of a biological description, and water, of course, blood is made mainly of water, so it's another way of saying pretty much the same thing in a different way. I don't think we should be too hung up on the precise. This is not the Quran is not a book of botany or biology that has a biological description. Sometimes it uses language. Oh, you're just made out of matter. You're made out of the earth. It's a metaphor, a way of speaking, made out of earthly things. Yeah. So I don't see these as contradictions. They're different poetic figure ways of describing man's origin as either as a very lowly thing, or if you want to get precise, a blood clot, and then you get the kind of more biological explanation, or water. Most of human beings are made out of water, or out of the earth. The last one,
dust.
In a cosmic sense,
Nothing.
We're made out of stardust. We're made out of stuff that comes from stars. Stars explode. Then we become, second, third generation.
But we're not made out of nothing.
So we are made out of different things. We, the universe,
Quran is
we're
wrong.
all made out of nothing in the ultimate sense. We don't come out of, God creates us out of nothing, ex nihilo, in that metaphysical sense. So I think if you use a bit of subtlety here and nuance, you can see different ways of describing our condition, either in a very material way or a biological way, or made out of, came out of nothing. I don't see, if you just loosen up a bit and use a bit of imagination, that these are not boring textbook definitions that you almost regimented agree they're most made out of. What's the chemical composition? Why is it talking about the chemical composition on each?
But that's exactly the problem, because that's how you show it off to be. You show it off, Muslims. You show it off as to be. Yeah,
I'm Muslim,
when you spoke to me.
I'm not Muslims. I'm
many
me.
other Muslims like you, like other Dawas who fortunately didn't come to the other Dawas.
Ali Dawah.
Or the other Dawas, the Dawas.
Oh,
who
wait,
come
I think it's Ali Dawah.
Not Ali Dawah, not necessarily.
No, I was going to object to that.
No, don't worry. I won't compare you to Ali Dawah. I won't compare you to Ali Dawah.
Thank you.
I don't have that much.
I don't
of a
hang
low
around in
opinion.
bushes stalking people. He stalked Tommy Robinson, and that's when
I know.
Ali Dawah attacked me. He declared me a non-Muslim because I used to follow him on Twitter, and it was actually a broadcast of Ali Dawah. He was in a bush just down the road from where Tommy Robinson's family lived, broadcasting live with a mate of his on camera, stalking him. And I thought, what? Why are you stalking? And then I heard Tommy Robinson on YouTube the next day saying, my mother is so upset with this, she's actually got a policeman to stand guard outside the house because there's people at the end of my street who are stalking us and she's afraid. And I said to Alia, why are you doing this? This is terrible. This is not Dawah. This is harassment. You don't behave like this. This is bad, very bad. And you know what he did? He said, clearly you're a police agent, you're on Tommy Robinson's side, and he said, you're not a Muslim, and he takfired me. And that's the last.
If you want to give bad examples of things Ali Dawah did, talk about the cat that fundraised when he decided to raise money on the name of some Muslim guy who died, and he wanted to raise some money from it to save his soul because apparently he didn't live a righteous life, and then he wanted to build a well in some faraway country. It was a big deal for a while. Like Kalam did a video about it, and
How much money was involved?
I don't know. He deleted the video because he got a lot of bad feedback. That there was a bunch of money involved with it. At least some, hundreds or thousands. I don't even know. But what I do know is that he didn't give back that money because he didn't apologize. He didn't say anything about it. How come you don't know about this, man? Like,
no, I don't follow him.
Maybe ask Kalam about it. Kalam knows
I'm
more
not
than I do.
supporting him. I don't follow him. So all I knew was that I saw him on live Twitter in a bush in a park down the road from where Tommy Robinson's family lived, stalking them. And trying to speak to them, and I thought at night, it was night time as well. And I thought, wow, you don't behave like this. This is illegal. This is stalking people, harassing them. And because I said that publicly, he got very upset, and this was evidence I was not a Muslim. And I thought, wow, what an
You see, that's one of the look. I think there's a more important discussion to have before the contradiction in the Quran for now, and that's the discussion
Was that
about
your best one, by the
Dawas.
way?
No, it's not the best. The best one is yet to come.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
It's like the third best. I'm still not finished with this one, but we'll come to that later. One of the main reasons
Later?
why I spoke with the latest soon.
Hopefully sometime today.
No, but listen. One of the main reasons why I talk about Islam here is not about Islam because of Islam itself. It's because of the Dawas in speaker schools. Because they do this Dawah in such a low cunning way that I just can't feel good about it. I just can't let it go just like that. Sometimes, very often, I find Hashim, Shamsi, Mansour, Mohammed Hijab, Ali Dawah, any of them, just approaching or starting to talk with some visitors who do not know the fallacies they use, who do not know all the tricks that they make on them, and try to humiliate them as much as possible in front of the camera, to show it off on the camera and to say, look at this, a Muslim guy completely debunks this atheist or this Christian or this whatever guy. completely debunks him, complete destruction. And in the beginning when I came here, I fell victim to that. One time with Hashim, one time with Mansour. After that, no more. Because that is the absolute lowest thing that I've ever seen here.
I think there's a problem here. I think that because Mansour, I mean, we're all aware that we're talking. I'm not just talking to you now. I'm aware there's a camera. Yeah, I'm aware that this excellent chap with the sunglasses. This is going to end up on his channel, and there is a sense for many of us that we're talking to an audience, global audience out there. So I mean, not you. I don't really mean you at all. But there is the victim, the guy who we're going to practice our dawah on. And we're going to deconstruct his faith and show how silly it is, and all our followers out there will learn and benefit from that. So the innocent victim, I don't mean you, but the novice Christian, it's going to be used. So you have a point.
I see myself as one of the examples.
You have a point. But
I would look.
You're not a victim anymore. If you ever were one.
No. I'm not playing a victim complex. What I'm saying is, I know about it because I felt it on myself. I'm not saying you should feel bad for me. I'm saying I know about it because I saw it with my own two eyes.
I'm agreeing to you to some extent. There is a problem.
It's on video too.
There is a problem there. You've highlighted a real issue. And I'm agreeing with you to some extent. I say some extent because Muslims have a right to do dawah and have a right to communicate about Islam.
Well,
do you know what I mean? I think that has to be acknowledged. But sometimes we do, in a sense, not perhaps deliberately, but we use individuals who are new to it or are Christians. I mean, I won't name names, but some of these dawah accounts are so good at their art that they can. It's like doing a bit of high-tech surgery. They can cut off all the limbs and open up the chest. And I mean, they're so good at it that you don't stand a chance against these guys. I mean, you, but the novice Christian.
No, fair enough. Even if you mean me.
And it's a wonder to behold. But of course, you've got the victim there who's lying all over the floor, cut up in pieces. I agree. I agree. There's an issue.
But look, my point is, there's something even worse than that. Look, I don't really care too much. They usually come talk to people who are my age or older. They know what they're doing, right? They don't need any babysitting. They're adults. Now, what I do care about is something that Mansour did a while ago, which maybe you know, maybe you don't. I don't know if you do know. There was this 8-year-old girl with her mother. They were talking to Mansour. And basically, Mansour was talking to the mother, and the mother was apparently looking for something for a document. In the Bible, she was Christian, the girl was Christian. And Mansour, as he told me himself, he reasoned with the girl and made her say, Jesus Christ is not the Lord. Now, that's the kind of thing that just, no matter how you shift it,
how do you know the girl was? Okay, how do you know the girl was 8 years old?
Because I spoke with the mother.
She told you she was 8 years old.
I spoke with the mother herself.
See, in giving dawah generally, I know there's some other areas, not here, where I give dawah. We shouldn't really be talking to people who are legally children anyway, because we could easily be accused of, we're adults with, our skills, manipulating children. Because with a child, you can offer.
You reason with a child. There is no reason to begin with.
So there is this point here about we shouldn't be doing that to children anyway, in any context in Britain, because without the parents' consent. With the parents' consent, the family is there, everyone, mummy and daddy are there, maybe, but not. But
well,
it's very dodgy.
From what he told me himself, he asked her for consent. From what the mother told me, he didn't actually ask for consent, and he didn't ask for consent to post the video, which is the most important thing. Because a week after, she confronted him to remove the video. He didn't remove it. After that, she confronted him with the public, with a crowd, to remove it. He didn't remove it. She confronted him with the police to remove it. He didn't remove it. Only after a while of constant pressure, constant heckling, he finally decided to remove the video when telling the mother, you better make them shut up or I'll put it on again.
That doesn't sound like the Mansour I know, but I haven't seen this, so I don't know.
You might not believe me, but I am not lying about this. I did speak with the mother.
I haven't seen it myself. I'm going by what you said. It doesn't sound like Mansour. I mean, I know him quite well over the years, but it doesn't sound like him. But we shouldn't be giving dawah to children without the permission of their parents and the child himself. You're right. If that happened, it was wrong. You see, we're all human. We make mistakes. I make mistakes. Even you make mistakes. We all make mistakes. If that was a mistake, it was a mistake. And we move on and we learn from our mistakes.
But there was absolutely zero repentance. He didn't repent. He didn't feel bad about it. He didn't even feel like he was in the wrong. When I tried to talk to him, the first thing he did was start avoiding me, doing the joke of, oh, you don't exist, you don't exist, you don't exist. I'll just avoid you. Then I told him, Mansour, what the hell did you do? And then he looked at me, oh, you don't talk to me like that. he doesn't want to actually take any responsibility, and that's one of the main problems here with the Dawas, especially. Like the Christians, I don't care about the Christians. Some people think that I side with the Christians. I've been debating Bob over there a few times. I've been talking with Christians many times, just not on camera.
What did you debate with Bob about?
About the watchmaker fallacy, and also about some other things, like about the first cause. You know, I was talking about that with you too. You know what I mean? Different things, different things.
I was just curious.
About how religion is a tool of power, blah blah blah. You can watch the video. It's on YouTube. It's a decent video. It's a decent debate. It's relatively, it's relatively respectful, even though sometimes Bob too uses some.
Bob is Bob.
Bob is
He
Bob,
likes
yeah,
to,
Bob is Bob. Sometimes it's bombastic. But, it was respectful. In the end, it was respectful. There was no immediate try to humiliate the other party. There was no, oh, this guy is a fool, look at this guy, he's a complete joke. No.
Although Bob does that quite a lot with other people.
Well, I don't know about the other people.
He does it with
didn't do
Muslims.
that with me.
No, you're not a Muslim.
At least not yet. Well, if they do it with him, which I know they will do it because they did it on me, then is it wrong for him to do the same to them? Now, my main point here is, I don't care if people preach. That's not what I care about. The way you preach, that's what matters. And I made the video, and I said on video that I would not talk about Islam. And I don't really want that. Like you were talking to Will before, then I started talking to you. That's how we went back to the conversation about the Quran. I didn't engage you to talk about this. My point is, I want people that if they want to preach properly, show some kindness. There is no kindness. There's only this low cunning bullying trying to humiliate people, to debunk people, to destroy them on video, and then put the video, atheist destroyed, Christian destroyed, zero logic, no sense. Look at this guy. The Christians did the same. When they posted the video of me with Bob, they said the folly of atheism or of agnosticism, whatever. The folly. Who are you to say that? What kind of title is that?
It's clickbait to get people to.
I know it's clickbait, but it's really low cunning, and I want people to actually start realizing it, because it's really low tricks that people are falling by in droves. I don't give a shit. I don't care if look. When I spoke to Mansour, I didn't really feel too bad about. I mean, in the beginning when I saw the video, I admit it, I felt bad about it because I felt like they were trying to humiliate me on video. And after that, I thought about it. Why does it matter? Why does it matter what people say online about me or about whatever?
Because we're human. We're human.
Well, yeah, we do care about it to a certain extent, but in the end, it doesn't really matter too much. What does matter is that if they start engaging small children, if they start bullying people by the droves, if they start they even give their own people a bad name. They give their own people a bad name. They abuse their own people, like Ali Dawah did to the Muslims when he took their money. It's like some Muslim guy dying over here and he jumps in front. Okay, guys, give me money. I'll save his soul. Like, what the hell are you doing, man? Are those really the figures that the Muslims here are supposed to follow? I spoke to many Muslims who were very reasonable people here. For example, Mustafa, an Egyptian guy who knows a lot about technology, a lot more than I could ever know, honestly. I spoke with like Ali, a Shia guy, and a few other Muslims here. But just the Dawas are really, really low people here. Really low. Paul, let's see a parallelism between the situation and something else. Do you remember the time when I told you let's talk about contradictions in the Quran?
Yeah.
Do you remember what you did?
Yeah.
You didn't want to talk about the contradictions.
Do you remember why? Do you remember why?
Why didn't you talk?
Do you remember why?
I remember, because you wanted to talk about the existence of God, which is something completely different.
I want to talk about you and your agnosticism.
No, bro. I'm not the question here.
No.
You were
That's
talking
what I
about
said.
the Quran,
That's what I said.
and I know that you are
Show me
very
a
often
right.
insincere when you talk.
Now
Because
you-
I was trying to. No, bro. You attacked him. Now I'm gonna attack you because you're talking. You're saying he ran away. You're saying he.
Let's talk about the contradictions now. Let's talk about the contradictions.
His ego got
Let's
in the
talk
way
about
or
the
whatever.
contradictions now. Show me
You
a
want to talk
contradiction.
about the contradictions?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't have my Quran today because I don't bring
No.
it all the time.
Well, that's
but
not very
I have
helpful.
something. No, but I have something else. I have my KGB folder.
Aha. So which part of the world were you from originally?
Which part of?
The world, the globe.
Of what?
You said you've got your KGB folder. You're clearly not English. Where are you from?
Cheese man done his homework.
I think I told you already.
Well, remind me. I've forgotten.
Ukraine.
Ah, so you're from Russia then.
Yeah, of course. Hilarious.
Does everyone say that to you?
You're a funny
I'm
guy.
sorry. That was a very bad
Yeah,
joke.
you're a funny guy.
Right.
Now,
Far away.
Let's go for any of them. Let's go for this one. I like this one.
Ah,
What
okay.
is man created from? Quran. Chapter 19, verse 67, nothing. Chapter 96, verse 2, blood clot. Chapter 21, verse 30, water. Chapter 16, verse 4, a small seed. Chapter 15, verse 26, clay and mud. Chapter 3, verse 59, dust. Chapter 11, verse 61, earth. Which of them is the creation of?
They're all true in their way. They're all true. Let me explain how. When God says, like in Genesis, creating Adam and Eve out of the earth, it's a way of speaking of their material, lowly origin. They're just made from stuff on the ground. They're made from matter. If you want to get very technical, there's a bit there that says
nothing, blood clot, water, small seed, clay and mud,
then you get blood
dust,
clot, which is a more of a biological description, and water, of course, blood is made mainly of water, so it's another way of saying pretty much the same thing in a different way. I don't think we should be too hung up on the precise. This is not the Quran is not a book of botany or biology that has a biological description. Sometimes it uses language. Oh, you're just made out of matter. You're made out of the earth. It's a metaphor, a way of speaking, made out of earthly things. Yeah. So I don't see these as contradictions. There's a different poetic figure ways of describing man's origin as either as a very lowly thing, or if you want to get precise, a blood clot, and then you get the kind of more biological explanation, or water. Most of human beings are made out of water, or out of the earth. The last one,
dust.
In a cosmic sense,
nothing.
We're made out of stardust. We're made out of stuff that comes from stars. Stars explode, then we become, second, third generation.
But we're not made out of nothing.
So we are made out of different things. We, the universe, we're all made out of nothing in the ultimate sense. We don't come out of, God creates us out of nothing, ex nihilo, in that metaphysical sense. So I think if you use a bit of subtlety here and nuance, you can see different ways of describing our condition, either in a very material way or a biological way, or made out of, came out of nothing. I don't see, if you just loosen up a bit and use a bit of imagination, that these are not boring textbook definitions that you almost regimented agree they're most made out of. What's the chemical composition? Why is it talking about the chemical composition on each?
But that's exactly the problem, because that's how you show it off to be. You show it off, Muslims. You show it off as to be. Yeah, when you spoke to me.
I'm not Muslims. I'm
many other Muslims like you, like other Dawahs who fortunately didn't come to the other Dawahs.
Ali Dawah.
Or the other Dawahs. The Dawahs.
Oh, wait, I think it's Ali Dawah.
Not Ali Dawah, not necessarily.
No, I was going to object to that.
No, don't worry. I won't compare you to Ali Dawah. I won't compare you to Ali Dawah.
Thank you.
I don't have that much.
I don't hang around in bushes stalking people. He stalked Tommy Robinson, and that's when Ali Dawah attacked me. He declared me a non-Muslim because I used to follow him on Twitter. And it was actually a broadcast of Ali Dawah. He was in the bush just down the road from where Tommy Robinson's family lived, broadcasting live with a mate of his on camera, stalking him. And I thought, what? Why are you stalking? And then I heard Tommy Robinson on YouTube the next day saying, my mother is so upset with this, she's actually got a policeman to stand guard outside the house because there's people at the end of my street who are stalking us and she's afraid. And I said to Ali, why are you doing this? This is terrible. This is not Dawah. This is harassment. You don't behave like this. This is bad, very bad. And you know what he did? He says, clearly you're a police agent, you're on Tommy Robinson's side, and he said, you're not a Muslim, and he takfired me. And that's the last.
If you want to give bad examples of things Ali Dawah did, talk about the cat that fundraised when he decided to raise money on the name of some Muslim guy who died, and he wanted to raise some money from it to save his soul because apparently he didn't live a righteous life, and then he wanted to build a well in some faraway country. It was a big deal for a while. Like Kalam did a video about it, and
how much money was involved?
I don't know. He deleted the video because he got a lot of bad feedback. But there was a bunch of money involved with it. At least some, hundreds or thousands. I don't even know. But what I do know is that he didn't give back that money because he didn't apologize. He didn't say anything about it. How come you don't know about this, man? Like,
no, I don't follow him.
Maybe ask Kalam about it. Kalam knows
I'm
more
not
than
supporting him. I don't follow him. So all I knew was that I saw him on live Twitter in a bush in a park down the road from where Tommy Robinson's family lived, stalking them. And trying to speak to them, and I thought at night, it was night time as well. And I thought, wow, you don't behave like this. This is illegal. This is stalking people, harassing them. And because I said that publicly, he got very upset, and this proved this was evidence I was not a Muslim. And I thought, wow, what an
You see, that's one of the look. I think there's a more important discussion to have before the contradiction in the Quran for now, and that's the discussion
Was that
about
your best one, by
Dawah.
the way?
No, it's not the best. The best one is yet to come.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
It's like the third best. I'm still not finished with this one, but we'll come to that later. One of the main reasons
Later?
why I spoke soon.
Hopefully sometime today.
No, but listen. One of the main reasons why I talk about Islam here is not about Islam because of Islam itself. It's because of the Dawahs in speaker schools. Because they do this Dawah in such a terrible, in such a low cunning way that I just can't feel good about it. I just can't let it go just like that. Sometimes, very often, I find Hashim, Shamsi, Mansour, Mohammed Hijab, Ali Dawah, any of them, just approaching or starting to talk with some visitors who do not know the fallacies they use, who do not know all the tricks that they make on them, and try to humiliate them as much as possible in front of the camera, to show it off on the camera and to say, look at this, a Muslim guy completely debunks this atheist or this Christian or this whatever guy, completely debunks him, complete destruction. And in the beginning when I came here, I fell victim to that. One time with Hashim, one time with Mansour. After that, no more. Because that is the absolute lowest thing that I've ever seen here.
I think there's a problem here. I think that because Mansour, I mean, we're all aware that we're talking. I'm not just talking to you now. I'm aware there's a camera. Yeah, I'm aware that this excellent chap with the sunglasses. This is going to end up on his channel, and there is a sense for many of us that we're talking to an audience, global audience out there. So I mean, not you. I don't really mean you at all. But there is the victim, the guy who we're going to practice our dawah on. And we're going to deconstruct his faith and show how silly it is, and all our followers out there will learn and benefit from that. So the innocent victim, I don't mean you, but the novice Christian, it's going to be used.
Myself.
So you have a point.
I see myself as one of the
You
examples.
have a point. But
I would look.
You're not a victim anymore. If you ever were one.
No. I'm not playing a victim complex. What I'm saying is, I know about it because I felt it on myself. I'm not saying you should feel bad for me. I'm saying I know about it because I saw it with my own two eyes.
I'm agreeing to you to some extent. There is a problem.
It's on video too.
There is a problem there. You've highlighted a real issue. And I'm agreeing with you to some extent. I say some extent because Muslims have a right to do dawah, they have a right to communicate about Islam.
Well,
do you know
yeah.
what I mean? I think that has to be acknowledged. But sometimes we do, in a sense, not perhaps deliberately, but we use individuals who are new to it or are Christians. I mean, I won't name names, but some of these dawah accounts are so good at their art that they can. It's like doing a bit of high-tech surgery. They can cut off all the limbs and open up the chest. And I mean, they're so good at it that you don't stand a chance against these guys. I mean, you, but the novice Christian.
No, fair enough. Even if you mean me.
And it's a wonder to behold. But of course, you've got the victim there who's lying all over the floor, cut up in pieces. I agree. I agree. There's an issue.
But look, my point is, there's something even worse than that. Look, I don't really care too much. They usually come talk to people who are my age or older. They know what they're doing, right? They don't need any babysitting. They're adults. Now, what I do care about is something that Mansour did a while ago, which maybe you know, maybe you don't. I don't know if you do know. There was this 8-year-old girl with her mother. They were talking to Mansour. And basically, Mansour was talking to the mother, and the mother was apparently looking for something for a document. In the Bible, she was Christian, the girl was Christian. And Mansour, as he told me himself, he reasoned with the girl and made her say, Jesus Christ is not the Lord. Now, that's the kind of thing that just, no matter how you shift it,
how do you know the girl was? Okay, how do you know the girl was 8 years old?
Because I spoke with the mother.
She told you she was 8 years old.
I spoke with the mother herself.
See, in giving dawah generally, I know there's some other areas, not here, where I give dawah, we shouldn't really be talking to people who are legally children anyway, because we could easily be accused of, we're adults with, our skills, manipulating children. Because with a child, you can offer.
You reason with a child. There is no reason to begin with.
So there is this point here about we shouldn't be doing that to children anyway, in any context in Britain, because without the parents' consent. With the parents' consent, the family is there, everyone, mummy and daddy are there maybe, but not. But
well,
it's very dodgy.
From what he told me himself, he asked her for consent. From what the mother told me, he didn't actually ask for consent, and he didn't ask for consent to post the video, which is the most important thing, because a week after she confronted him to remove the video. He didn't remove it. After that, she confronted him with the public, with a crowd to remove it. He didn't remove it. She confronted him with the police to remove it. He didn't remove it. Only after a while of constant pressure, constant heckling, he finally decided to remove the video when telling the mother, "You better make them shut up or I'll put it on again."
That doesn't sound like the Mansour I know, but I mean, I haven't seen this, so I don't know.
You might not believe me, but I am not lying about this. I did speak with the mother.
I haven't seen it myself. I'm going by what you said. It doesn't sound like Mansour. I mean, I know him quite well over the years, but it doesn't sound like him. But we shouldn't be giving dawah to children without the permission of their parents and the child himself. You're right. If that happened, it was wrong. You see, we're all human. We make mistakes. I make mistakes. Even you make mistakes. We all make mistakes. If that was a mistake, it was a mistake. And you know, we move on and we learn from our mistakes.
There was absolutely zero repentance. Like he didn't repent. He didn't feel bad about it. He didn't even feel like he was in the wrong. When I tried to talk to him, the first thing he did was like start avoiding me, doing the joke of, "Oh, you don't exist, you don't exist, you don't exist. I'll just avoid you." Then I told him, "Mansour, what the hell did you do?" And then he looked at me, "Oh, you don't talk to me like that." He doesn't want to actually take any responsibility, and that's one of the main problems here with the Dawas, especially. Like the Christians, I don't care about the Christians. Some people think that I side with the Christians. I've been debating Bob over there a few times. I've been talking with Christians many times, just not on camera.
What did you debate with Bob about?
About the watchmaker fallacy, and also about some other things, like about the first cause. You know, I was talking about that with you too. You know what I mean? Different things, you know, different things.
I was just curious.
About how religion is a tool of power, blah blah blah. You can watch the video. It's on YouTube. It's a decent video. It's a decent debate. It's relatively respectful, even though sometimes Bob too uses some.
Bob is Bob.
Bob is
He
Bob,
likes
yeah,
to,
Bob is Bob. Sometimes it's bombastic. But, you know, it was respectful. In the end, it was respectful. There was no immediate try to humiliate the other party. There was no, "Oh, this guy is a fool, look at this guy, he's a complete joke." No.
Although Bob does that quite a lot with other people.
Well,
He
I don't
does it
know
with
about
you,
the other
but
people.
He does it with
didn't do
Muslims.
that with me.
No, you're not a Muslim.
At least not yet. Well, if they do it with him, which I know they will do it because they did it on me, then is it wrong for him to do the same to them? Now, my main point here is, I don't care if people preach. That's not what I care about. The way you preach, that's what matters. And I made the video, and I said on video that I would not talk about Islam. And I don't really want that. Like you were talking to Will before, then I started talking to you. That's how we went back to the conversation about the Quran. I didn't engage you to talk about this. My point is, I want people that if they want to preach properly, show some kindness. There is no kindness. There's only this low cunning bullying trying to humiliate people, to debunk people, to destroy them on video, and then put the video, atheist destroyed, Christian destroyed, zero logic, no sense. Look at this guy. You know, the Christians did the same. When they posted the video of me with Bob, they said the folly of atheism or of agnosticism, whatever. The folly. Who are you to say that? What kind of title is that?
It's clickbait to get people to.
I know it's clickbait, but it's really low cunning, and I want people to actually start realizing it, because it's really low tricks that people are falling by in droves. I don't give a shit. I don't care if look. When I spoke to Mansour, I didn't really feel too bad about. I mean, in the beginning when I saw the video, I admit it, I felt bad about it because I felt like they were trying to humiliate me on video. And after that, I thought about it. Why does it matter? Why does it matter what people say online about me or about whatever?
Because we're human. We're human.
Well, yeah, we do care about
what
it
people
to a
say.
certain extent, but in the end, it doesn't really matter too much. What does matter is that if they start engaging small children, if they start bullying people by the droves, if they start they even give their own people a bad name. They give their own people a bad name. They abuse their own people, like Ali Dawah did to the Muslims when he took their money. It's like some Muslim guy dying over here and he jumps in front. Okay, guys, give me money. I'll save his soul. Like, what the hell are you doing, man? Are those really the figures that the Muslims here are supposed to follow? I spoke to many Muslims who were very reasonable people here. For example, Mustafa, an Egyptian guy who knows a lot about technology, a lot more than I could ever know, honestly. I spoke with like Ali, a Shia guy, and a few other Muslims here. But just the Dawas are really, really low people here.
really low key.
depressed and bedridden. And the Speaker's Corner is the only place to come. You get to see people from different cultures and different religions, to learn about religions, to talk to people, and it's just giving me more confidence. It's made my life.
It's pretty unusual. Speaker's Corner actually made somebody feel more positive.
Yeah, it does.
Nathan, does Speaker's Corner make you feel more positive?
It's pretty unusual. Pretty unusual.
No, indeed. This gentleman was saying that it made him more
He started feeling better because he started coming to Speaker's
I've never
Corner.
heard someone say it.
There must be a reason why I must keep coming every Sunday.
You're addicted? Someone pays you?
Oh no, I'm discovered. I'm discovered.
Saudi gold. You know that gold
Like, I
Saudi
feel like I've never fit in
every week to
anywhere.
come down.
Because I'm into dinosaurs and I'm into mountains and hills.
Dinosaurs
Please
are
can have
pretty
some
cool.
money.
I like dinosaurs. Which one is your favorite?
Triceratops and
Triceratops.
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
The king of.
This is a very old question.
The king of
The way it's
wizards.
usually answered with some
It's
credibility
translation,
is
the Latin
the Jews are
I
being
like wizards to have
sarcastic.
more human empathy.
It's a typical Jewish
See
idiom
the human.
where you're being ironic. You're not answering it directly.
I don't see.
we crucify
I don't
them aside,
dehumanize
yeah,
Muslims.
right.
I just think Islam
And
is
Islam,
not
sorry, the
a
Quran
very
is
good
reflecting that
influence
kind
on
of
people.
sarcastic
They're still in the end people.
Idiom.
I don't see like Muslims.
So it's actually,
I'm not these
instead of being
people.
a
They're
problem,
just
it's actually a mark of
they're
authenticity
other
of the
kind of
Quran, but
people. No, they're still
it
people.
expresses
It's
that
just that there are
sarcasm
people
quite
who
well.
are
And
influenced
rabbis
by
have
an
admitted
ideology
that this
I
is
disagree
something that's
with.
been acknowledged.
That's my bone to pick with Islam itself.
This
Now,
is,
the bigger bone to pick here
this is
is, as I said, about the
characteristics
way
of
the Dawah is being
ways that
conducted here in
some
Speaker's
Jews can
Corner, which
speak
I'm completely
about
against.
matters.
I mean,
With sarcasm,
again, as I said
kind of,
before, Christians also have their
kind of sarcastic
some big flaws in the way they engage people. But
Oh, he looked
I
at
just
me
think
and
the
said,
Dawah
can I
team
have
is
some
much
references?
more
I said, well, I'll get a
extreme in
bibliography
their
for you and I'll
engagement
bring
with
it along
people.
next week.
They really
Yeah, it's
act
not
like
my walking
thugs
encyclopedia.
sometimes, really thuggish behavior. Like they have these
I know I
these
have a
factions
reference
inside
in
them.
my
Like for
head.
example, when Ali Dawah was
vast
in
library I
a war
keep
with
from my
Shamsi,
ears.
you know, an ideological war and stuff. It's a really thuggish behavior. I don't appreciate it. I would appreciate it a lot more if they would just more open and would just speak to people.
Because these people, they're doing these things.
no, that was the Romans. That was the Romans.
I feel like
That was the Romans.
I'm suffering as a Muslim. As a dinosaurs, mountains and hills, cartoons.
It is a
And just a secular
known
person, I feel like I'm
Jewish
stereotyping. So I'm
rabbinical sarcasm.
without
Nah,
Where you
not
kind of
necessarily.
sarcastically respond.
There might be some people who will make that conclusion, but I don't make that conclusion.
Oh, that's really nice of you. I'm so sorry you asked me about such a bad
It's cool. It struck me when I first read
No,
it.
again, bro, it's not about me. I'm just talking about my experience
I
to
think
give an
Gary
example.
Miller,
That I actually know what I'm talking about. I'm
First
just not just making this
I
up.
was aware
Because
of
I
it. He
saw
said
them in
that he
action
had taken
and I
that
know
to
what
his
they do.
local
And
rabbi.
when you
And
see them
asked
in
him,
action,
he
you
said,
you can't be.
that's
It's not as
that
easy
sounds
to
like a
fool you
Jewish
anymore.
thing to say.
But anyway, we kind of jumped away from the main.
Oh yes. Oh, contradictions.
Yeah, the contradictions.
Yes. Give me your choice one, sir.
So look, it's fair enough that you're saying that it's a metaphor. You know, that you're saying water and blood, it's kind of might be the same. Earth and dust kind of might be the same, but so many different qualities, so many different definitions. Like nothingness. Nothingness is the one that ticks me off the
What is
most.
it? Nothing. Can you show me the reference?
Chapter 19, verse 67.
I don't remember.
Chapter 19,
1967.
67, yeah. Nothing. I mean, it would be fast if I brought my Quran, but I haven't been bringing it.
You say
for a long while.
1967.
Yeah, it should be. On mine is 1967.
When the man says, "When I am dead, shall I then be raised up?" Oh, does not remember. We created him before.
Yeah, it's 68 here. You
whilst
see,
he
that,
was
that's one
nothing.
of the things. On my Quran, it's 67, but in this one, it's 68. And in some Qurans, it's
These are
different.
human. These numbers were not part of the original Quran. It's added by.
Oh, I see. Maybe they're
The
different.
Quran is often very rhetorical. You know, it's engaging in rhetoric, or it's not like a deadpan scientific textbook. It's involving in rhetoric. So the context here, where God is talking to a man, the disbeliever. This is the context. I think the mistake to read this is kind of a scientific statement that you get in a textbook. So the disbeliever says, "When I am dead, shall I be raised up?" So the issue is about life after death. And surely it does not man remember that we created him before, while he was nothing.
Yeah, that's the one.
That is a mysterious thought, while he was nothing.
While he was nothing. So from nothingness.
From nothing, yeah, created him out of nothing.
It's pretty. I mean, I feel like it's a bit
Because
contradictory.
there is also I forget it's in the Quran, I think it is, the sense that the covenant that God made with Adam before men had bodies, I suppose you put it that way, when humanity was taken out of the loins of Adam. This is before we existed on Earth. And Nazim, are you helping me? You with me? And God asked. And God asked humanity, "Am I not your Lord?" And humanity says, "Yes, you are our Lord." And this is before humanity was on Earth, I suppose. There's one way of reading this. And
I mean, it could be referring to the original creation of Adam or the original creation of creation.
it's an interesting question. I would look at the tafsir, the commentaries, the exegesis from the scholars to see what was getting at here. But usually these things have a specific meaning in that context. And I think to isolate them and see them as kind of scientific statements is divorce them from their rhetorical context. So here we've got a polemic about the life after death, and that God can create out of nothing. God creates us. So I think that's the kind of sense I'm getting from this. But I see your point, but I don't think, again, you're pushing the point too far to see it in a very literal sense. Well, one says water, another one says blood, one says dust. I think the context would suggest, did we not create you out of dust? Did you not come out of nothing, your lowly origin? I don't think it's meant to be a scientific description of what man was made out of.
Okay, you may say that, but I have heard many arguments saying that there is scientific information in the Quran. So when exactly do we know when the information in the Quran is supposed to be taken scientifically and when it's just supposed to be taken metaphorically?
That is a very good question. I'll let you into an embarrassing, it's not an embarrassing confession. I don't agree with any of this scientific claims in the Quran. I don't buy that.
I agree with you.
I really don't buy that. I think it's massively overdone. I'm not saying okay, so some people say the Quran's talking about black holes and the Big Bang and what else?
Mansour.
and I don't buy that, actually. And one of the reasons I don't, I remember I attended a lecture, Abdul Halim at SOAS. Abdul Halim is probably the West's greatest expert on the Quranic Arabic. He produced the translation for Oxford University Press. Very esteemed professor at University of London, just down the road. And this was at SOAS, Birkbeck College, a couple of years ago during Islamic Awareness Week. And the organisers of this invited him along to talk about science and the Quran. I remember, were you there? Yeah, you and I were there. And he came on and said, he's an Arab, he's an Egyptian guy. Words to the effect that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about this. There are no scientific miracles in the Quran. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. And I sat there thinking, now this is very interesting because he's like the foremost expert on the Quran I've ever heard of, And when you talk to specialists, like the Big Bang, for example, I've got a friend of mine, she's doing a PhD in physics at Imperial. Mahmoud is a friend of ours. He's a Muslim. He's from Turkey. He's an imam. He can read the Arabic in the Quran in Arabic. He's also doing a PhD in astrophysics at Imperial College. Now, Imperial College is one of the top universities in the world. He's doing a PhD there in astrophysics, isn't he, Nazam? Right. So the point is, I just finished.
The question. It was about different parts of the Quran, in which what was man created from. Like in different parts of the Quran, the answers are different. In one of them it says nothing, a blood cloth, water, small seed, clay and mud, dust, earth. Now,
that's what he's answering now.
We're talking about that.
But he then made a very valid point about so-called scientific miracles, and I'm saying that our friend Mahmoud is an expert. He says when he knows about Big Bangs, he knows about black holes particularly, and he says the Quran's description is not a physics description of the Big Bang at all. It's quite different. So the Quran is not talking about the Big Bang as a scientific event. So I have Abdul Halim at SOAS, I have our friend Mahmoud doing a PhD in the subject at Imperial, both saying to me, nope, it's not there. And I think, fair enough. Fair enough. So your point about saying, I don't think there are any scientific miracles in the Quran. What do you think, Nazam?
Putting him on the spot here.
Nazam's rolling his eyes, by the way.
You put me off guard.
I do respect what you're saying now, because you're not acting like there's all these scientific proofs in the Quran. On that, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you on that. I don't hate the Quran and I don't hate the Bible because they have metaphorical meaning, and that's the thing that is interesting about those books. Some people take them literally, which is the main thing I hate. But if you read them, even if you sometimes don't understand the message, there is a subconscious message that is usually passed by what you read. The example that was given to me by one of my teachers when I was in school, he gave the example about that. He was a literature teacher, and he was giving an example of metaphors. And he gave an example from the Bible, which is about that guy who was about to sacrifice his son to God. You know, who was about to cut his Abraham. Is that it? Okay, fine, fair enough.
Genesis.
I remember all the names. Good thing you remember that because I just know the story. And he was talking about that this way. So the importance of what was going on was not that God made him sacrifice his son. It was how far Abraham would go, just how just to prove himself. And that will to prove himself, that will of complete commitment is the message that is transmitted. It's not if somebody tells you to do something, do it. If God tells you to do something, do it. It's the commitment. It's to expand the idea of complete commitment to something, to not betray an idea because you're attached to something you will need to lose to betray it. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting message, and then there are many messages like those. If you take it in a metaphorical way, then I kind of don't have any.
I know what you're saying. I'm not saying that the Quran is a book of metaphor. I'm saying that the alleged scientific descriptions of phenomena we see in science are simply not there. I think it's a man-made invention of over-enthusiastic Dawah carriers who want to prove. See, this is not even orthodox Dawah. I mean, the Sahaba didn't go around talking about scientific miracles. This is not how Dawah is done, should be done from the Quran. We should be talking about Tawheed, oneness of God and so on. This is a new thing. This is a bid'ah, to use that language. It's an innovation in Dawah to talk about something that no one's ever done before, simply so that Western people can feel, it's a book of science. Because science now is
science.
I like science, therefore the Quran must be true. Yeah. That's not Dawah.
I mean, I can see some people falling for that.
They do. No, they become Muslims on the basis of it, and which is problematic if that's all their basis. There must be something other than that. So I've never been. Now there may be one or two exceptions, probably. Maybe there's embryology. Maybe the what else might be just about credible.
You mean about the blood cloth?
Yeah, but
Jeffrey Lang makes an interesting point on this topic. He takes the other approaches, which is like any kind of scientific errors not to be found in the Quran. Like the Quran doesn't reflect the knowledge that was prevalent in the 7th century Arabia in that milieu. Like you wouldn't find anything that is established now by science. You wouldn't find.
Yes, so kind of a negative proof that if there are lots of different weird and wonderful ideas about the origins of the Quran doesn't have those. I mean, it has created the universe out of nothing, which is kind of like the Big Bang, if you like. It's not saying it's some weird creation myth. So it doesn't get things wrong.
I'm losing my religion.
Yeah. So it's a kind of negative scientific, there are no unscientific stuff. But even that is questionable because the Quran talks about Adam and Eve, and modern science wouldn't talk about Adam and Eve. So there is that apparent contradiction between modern understandings of the origins of man and what the Quran says.
It's now the interpretation, like your understanding of Adam and Eve.
Well, that's the question. I mean, I don't have. Because I'm a more conservative. If the Quran says Adam and Eve existed, that's fine for me. But in terms of macroevolution of all the other species, that's not an issue in the Quran. One of the names of God in the Quran is the Evolver. So the idea that God evolves is not God evolves, but what He creates evolves is actually in the Quran anyway. But scientific miracles in general, nah. They get a definite down. Now that will set me out against 99% of the Muslims, but hey, I'm used to that.
Let me give you another example. I think you were waiting for this one. I think you know which one I'm going to.
Actually, I have no idea.
I'm going to give.
Give me a juicy one. What? Well, I don't want some low level contradiction. I want some hard,
Before I go to that one, let me go to another one. This one is also pretty good. Who was the first Muslim?
Yes.
So, chapter 6, verse 14, Muhammad. Chapter 7, verse 143, Moses.
6:14.
And I think it also says something about Adam and Abraham being Muslims. So who was the
They were
first?
like, who's the first believer?
Yeah, who was the actual first Muslim?
I don't think there's a contradiction, but okay, let's do 6:14. Something
Okay.
on audience.
Let's see that. 6:14.
Say, O Muhammad, I'm just reading from this translation. Shall I take as a wali, that is a helper protector of any other than Allah? So he's asking Muhammad to say this, the creator of the heavens and the earth. Say, verily, I'm commanded to be the first of those who submit themselves to Allah as Muslims. And be not you, O Muhammad, of the mushrikeen, that's the polytheists, idolaters. Okay, that's that one. So he's talking to Muhammad in Arabia, and the other passage was
743. Chapter 7, verse 143. It says Moses. And I think it also says about Adam and Abraham being Muslims. Well, I don't remember. I don't have the.
They were Muslims as well.
It's okay.
Because in
They're all
Islam, I
Muslims.
think they say you have to accept.
What's the, sorry, 143?
Chapter 7, verse 143.
Just read it. And when Musa, as Moses, came at a time and place appointed by us, and his Lord spoke to him, saying, spoke to him, he said, O my Lord, show me yourself that I may look upon you. Allah said, you cannot see me. Sorry. Where am I
Allah
looking?
said, you cannot see me,
But look upon the
but
mountain.
look upon the mountain.
If it stands still in its place, then you shall see me. So when the Lord appeared
he
to the
destroyed the
mountain,
mountain.
he made it collapse to dust, and Musa fell down unconscious. Then when he recovered his senses, says, Glory be to you, I turn to your repentance, I am the first of the believers.
See,
Yeah.
it says it the first with Muhammad, and it says it's the first with Moses.
I mean,
You can say it's just a small mistake in the
no,
writing.
I'm not
but-
saying it's a mistake at all. I think that would be we must be charitable to text and not always assume a mistake. Context is Muhammad is the first of the believers in Arabia. He says, "Do not be as the mushrikeen." Well, Arabia was full of the mushrikeen, the Quraysh who worshipped idols. So he would be the first Muslim there, and Musa, Moses. Of course, he would be the first of the believers because there were no believers. He would be the first one. He's not making a cosmic statement about all mankind, I would argue. He's making statements about those people at that time. So I think what you're doing is you're generalising in that generation.
Moses was the first
You're
to
making it
believe.
into an absolute time-space statement where there's talking to this people who are pagans, the mushrikeen in that generation. This is talking to the generation of Moses, where he was the first Muslim or the first believer.
Fair enough. But I'm not talking about the generation itself. I'm talking more about the way it's written. It's written that you are the first Muslim with Muhammad, and it's written you are the first Muslim with
It
Moses.
doesn't say that. It doesn't say you.
It doesn't
How
say
come it doesn't say?
He said, I am first to believe.
I am the first. Fair enough.
But
I
also,
am.
the next sentence
It's the
says,
same.
and be not. This is, and be not of the mushrikeen. So why would he say that? Because of that generation, of that people, that was the issue. He will be the first Muslim in that people. Don't be like the mushrikeen. So he's not talking about Moses' people. He's not talking about all of mankind, but just in that kind where the mushrikeen be the first Muslim.
Okay, so it says it
Because
was the
Adam is
first
called
of the
the-
Mushrikeen, Moses.
Yeah, Adam is called Muslim as well. They're all, but it's not a contradiction that we're looking at different levels of generations, different areas of the world.
Okay.
So I
That's
don't
what
think
it
it's
says on who? Moses? Moses, it says Mushrikeen, or does it say
No, I'm the.
Mushrikeen?
It doesn't. No, that was in the Muhammad one. So I'm the first of the believers. He's the first of the believers of the at that time in that generation. Of course, he'd be the first believer. He's not talking about the cosmic all time over many millennia. He's talking to Moses at that time. You will be the first of the believers. And Adam is called the believer too. But of course, he existed a long time before that. And this is in the context of the mushrikeen. You will be the first Muslim. The first one who submits to God.
No,
Muslims
I
simply
accept
mean-
what you say about Muhammad, first
Yeah.
of the Mushrikeen. It's
Yeah,
fair enough.
you will be the first
That
who
one's
submits
debunked.
to God.
But-
Amongst clearly, he's talking about the
Yeah,
Arabians.
yes.
The
Yeah, it's
Arabs.
visible. It's visible.
Because the
From,
Mushrikeen-
first of the Mushrikeen to be a Muslim. Yeah, fair enough. But no, that's not the contradiction. The contradiction, yeah, that part of the contradiction. It's fair enough. You're right in that. But the part that you're not right is Adam is a Muslim, and then it actually says with Moses that he is the first Muslim. So
First-
who is
first
the
believer.
first Muslim? The first believer.
Yeah, Moses is the first
So
believer.
who was Adam? Was he not the first?
No, but Adam wasn't. That was a long time before. Musa was an Egyptian who, through his son's progeny, became Israel.
Does Adam not count?
Well, Adam is in the distant past. I mean, if humanity's been on the scene for what, 100,000 years, what do the biologists say now, 150,000 years, and Adam was the first human, then, you know, Moses existed, what, 4,000 years ago, 3,500, 4,000 years ago?
Okay, but there was a big space between Moses and Muhammad also.
Yeah, thousands of years.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
why would that space make you discount Adam, as the first Muslim?
Because
From
Muhammad
this- from
is the
this
first of the
contradiction.
Muslims amongst the era of that generation
The
of
Arabs,
whom
yeah,
there
yeah.
are mushrikeen. In the same way Moses was in that generation. He was the first. He's not talking about the fact there may have been a Muslim thousands of years before that, a believer thousands of years before that, and there are other believers apart from Adam, there was others as well. But he was the first believer at that time, at that generation, maybe for a long, long time.
And with the context of Moses, it's about seeing God, and it could be understood that no one won't believe until they see God, whereas Moses is now saying, I'm the first to believe without seeing God.
I'm the first
To believe without seeing God.
believe without seeing God.
Because within that generation, there
Does
could
it
be
actually
many,
say that?
many
Moses
people.
believed without seeing
They
God.
said there are 5 major.
Well, he asked to.
I mean, he's not the mountain being the mountain collapsing. I guess that's a sign
Well,
of
the
God's
hundreds of
existence.
thousands in the dimension.
No, it's 20,000, but then they say it's a 5 major.
Did Adam see
I
God?
don't know whether Adam is on it or.
I don't know if the Quran says that, but yeah, it could be the case.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
I mean, if Adam saw God, how come he didn't die?
failed my
If
religious
the mountain was shattered by God's visage, how come Adam didn't die by seeing God?
I don't think Adam did see God. It doesn't say anywhere.
Well, then Moses
say
was not
no
the
in the
first
Quran.
one to not see God, that convert to Islam. Neither of them saw God. You know what I mean?
But was it in that generation would be the first to believe without seeing God?
Yeah, it doesn't speak about generation. Moses, I think.
Who was Moses' people at that time? Moses, I think.
Israelites.
No, well,
It was the Jews, basically.
no, definitely not the Jews. The Jews came from.
I mean, I think
Okay,
it's right.
The answer is the
Israelites.
Egyptians, by the way. Just to get that in.
Egyptians, okay.
Where did Moses grow up? He was
Oh,
Egyptian.
yeah, because he was an Egyptian
And
prince.
Moses is an Egyptian
That's what you
name.
mean, yeah.
It's not a Jewish name. Well, it is now, but it's originally an Egyptian name. So the people who would be the first people are the Egyptians, actually.
What do you mean, the
And
first people?
the Egyptians worshipped their pharaohs. Well, after a manner of speaking, the pharaohs were the divine.
Well, you mean the first civilization?
No, the Egyptians worshipped their pharaoh. The pharaoh was the
No, you
god.
said the Egyptians were the first people or something like that.
No, I meant that Moses wasn't the first Jew. He was an Egyptian. So the people that he's referring to, the first of the believers, could be the first of the believers of those people, of the Egyptians, or ultimately the Jews. I mean, whatever the answer is, I don't see it as an obvious, necessary contradiction. There are ways of comfortably and plausibly putting them together by the ways we've suggested. It's not like a mathematical contradiction where I say 2 and 2 equals 6, and you complain, and I say, oh, well, metaphorically it means 4. No, I mean, that would be silly. But this isn't like that. This is, you can offer plausible explanations. And I found this before.
I mean, I guess you can kind of avoid this one because it's not that clear.
It's not
but,
clear. It hasn't struck me as a contradiction, but if you want to press it that way, you could make it a
It
contradiction.
sounds like a bit of confusion here because they are talking about many different characters as the first Muslims. I mean, okay, fair enough. They say the first of these people, the first of that people. They didn't say with Adam and Moses. They didn't say that Moses was the first of his people. They only say the first of his people with Muhammad.
Because the context is
We're
in
going
an
for
ongoing
semantics.
discussion. The context is clear that Muhammad is the first Muslim of his people. Because they're a
That's
bunch
clear,
of
yeah. With
mushrikeen.
Muhammad, it's clear. You're right.
But it
You're
doesn't-
right about
But it
Muhammad.
doesn't say that explicitly. It doesn't say.
No, it does say first of how did they call them?
Well, you're the first Muslim. But you could say,
First of the-
but Abraham was
first of
a
the
Muslim,
pagans, right?
so he's not the first. But the context is within that people, that generation. I don't see it as a.
I don't. I mean,
I
I,
don't
think
see it
that's a
as a- I
big
don't see it as
stretch
a-
you need to make.
I don't see it as a knockdown contradiction. It's not a really, really good one. I'm still waiting for a really good one. I mean, a really juicy one.
You asked
where,
for it.
where I'm going to go, oh no!
You asked for it. You asked for it.
Muhammad was Takfiri, the man who takfirs other Muslims, otherwise known as Ali Dawah. The stalker of
This is the
EDL
good one.
leaders. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Chapter number. I'm sure you were expecting this one. You must have been
I'm not
expecting.
I actually don't know what you're going
Chapter
to say.
2, verse 256. There is no compulsion in religion.
Oh, okay.
Chapter 9,
I'm not even-
verse 29. Fight those who don't believe Allah. Believe in Allah. I'm sure you were expecting this one. This is a very
I
famous
wasn't
one.
actually, but
Very
I'm not
famous.
even going to look much because I know both passages very well.
Fair enough.
What is the contradiction, do you think?
Well, because if there's no compulsion in religion, you shouldn't fight those who don't believe in Allah. It seems clear.
Right. In 929, I don't even look back, I know the passages. In 929, is God commanding the Muslims to force the non-Muslims to become Muslim?
It says you must fight those who... Just take a look. Take a look at the
It
thing.
doesn't say that. It
But
doesn't,
it's better. It's better.
It's not a contradiction.
Just to be clear.
It's talking about different things. I'll read it to you.
What, you need to self-defense everybody into submission? Is that what he's saying?
No, it's not about making people into forcing people to become Muslim. That's where you're misunderstanding.
Well, I didn't say that. You must fight those who don't believe in Allah.
And what happens at the end of it? Until they pay jizya. Well, let's read it.
So there is compulsion in
Until they pay jizya,
Well,
with willing
that's
submission
extra
and
tax.
feel themselves subdued. Yeah.
Feel themselves subdued. Doesn't sound very peaceful.
But they still, it doesn't sound very peaceful, but if the contradiction is there is no compulsion in religion, so are they being compelled to be Muslims or anything else? They're not being compelled to change their religion.
Because they pay tax. If they decide to not pay tax in the jizya, they will have to convert. So automatically they're being encouraged to become Muslims. You know, not only Muslims were doing that, obviously. In those terms, in the beginning of the Islamic Empire, they were more tolerant than the Christians. In the beginning of the Middle Ages.
They were being good Muslims.
In the beginning of the
It says here,
Islamic Empire.
jizya is a tax levied
But,
upon the
it
people
is
of the
a reality.
scriptures, Jews and Christians, who are under the protection of a Muslim government. So they're protected in their rights to worship freely. So it's the opposite, actually. It's not a contradiction. The opposite. It says there is no compulsion in religion. There is no compulsion in religion. The two verses are in harmony. They don't contradict each other.
How are they in harmony?
Because
If you're not being compelled by religion to do anything, you will not make the people you conquer pay jizya because they're not Muslims.
They are being compelled to pay
Silly.
jizya. No, you're right about that. But they're not being compelled in matters of religion. Remember, there is no compulsion in religion. So in regards to their faith, they're not being compelled to become Muslims at all. In fact, no Christians were compelled in the early centuries, for many centuries, to become Muslims. It's a myth that Islam was spread by the sword. People forced to become. It didn't happen. It just didn't happen.
Does it not say something about subduing them until
Yes.
they pay jizya?
Yes.
That submission, why will they subdue them? Why does it say in the Quran to subdue the ones who don't believe in Islam?
I think actually it's a very a pluralist policy, because what happened was the Arab, as far as I can remember, the Arab armies went out, as you know, from Arabia, and they conquered Byzantium, they conquered the Persian Empire. And
Yeah, but Byzantium was way after the beginning of the Arabic Empire.
But these are the Christians, Byzantines. The Persians were the Zoroastrians.
Yeah, Zoroastrians.
So focusing on the people in the book here,
The Sasanian.
Exactly. So this mentions Jews and Christians specifically in this. So they went to Spain, for example, the Iberian Peninsula, and what they did was they conquered the Christian overlords there. They put them in submission.
Yeah.
And what happened was
Created the kingdom of Al-Andalus. I know about the history.
But what happened was this, very interesting. There's an article about this by a leading Jewish scholar recently online about this. The Islam saved the Jews, basically, because the Jews were about to be either forced to convert or they would have been executed, they would have been killed in Christian Spain at the time. The Muslims went in there and they removed the oppressive Christian rulers, and they instigated the jizya system, which guaranteed their freedom of religion. The Jews actually had a much better time under Muslim rule than they did under Christian rule, and so did the Christians, because the Byzantines, the rulers, the Roman Empire, it's basically the Roman Empire, Christianized, they
The
oppressed.
Eastern Roman Empire.
They oppressed their what we would call what we call today Roman Catholic underlings, the broad mass of Catholic Christians who lived
I don't quite agree to that. The Jews had suffered some
That area,
oppression
Syria,
in some European countries. But I don't think the Catholics suffered a lot of oppression from the Byzantines.
They did. They were persecuted.
Catholics were taken as mercenaries very often in the Byzantine army. They were called the Alamanoi, like the Germans.
It's well documented that every day the lay Christians were persecuted by their Byzantine overlords. What happened was, by religious because they were seen as heretics, because they didn't subscribe to the Byzantine theology, the Orthodox theology.
What did the Byzantines do to them?
Well, they taught it, persecuted them. There were massive
How?
persecutions. Well, they tortured them. They burnt
Tortured them?
Yeah.
Really torturing them?
Yeah. Well, you want the
Never
juicy
heard
details?
of that. No.
Look,
I know about the Inquisition. I know about certain things done.
They were seen as
I never
heretics.
heard about the Byzantines prosecuting Catholics.
It is well known, very well known.
I don't think
So what happened? Well, I'm not. The history books say this. So what happened was when the Muslims went in, they subdued the Christian rulers. They allowed the masses of Christians to worship freely for the first time, and the Jews there in that area as well. So this was a liberation, a war of liberation for Jews and Christians. Who were subdued were the rulers. They were subdued and forced to submit to justice and just
Okay,
rule.
so wait.
So I think it's great.
Let me stop
I
you there.
think what happened
Fair
there
enough.
was super cool.
If what you're saying is true, it sounds good. But
It
my
does.
point is,
Adnan will tell you all about it.
My
Adnan
point
knows
is,
all about it.
you are advocating that submission to Muslims was
Yes.
better than submission to the Byzantines,
Yes.
and yet
Yes.
submission to the Muslims is encouraged in the Quran, in the basis of their religion, which makes it a compulsion. And it says there is no compulsion in religion. Their religion encourages them to subdue other peoples, and fair enough, sometimes they give them a better life, and I always advocate for empires that give a better life to their people, always. If you watch any of my videos, you will know about it. But my point is, so in reality, it seems like there is compulsion in religion, in this specific path.
It's actually
Because they're being
liberation.
compelled to...
It's the opposite. They're being
Whatever,
liberated.
no matter. Dude, the Americans will call liberation when they invade
the
the Middle
Americans
East.
are a bunch of here we're talking
Yeah,
about
they are a
people.
bunch of hypocrites, but what makes the Muslims different?
Politicians,
They will
oil
call,
grabbing,
everybody will call
geopolitically
liberation.
No, but I'm saying
their
objectively, the Jews, for example, were objectively freed from their oppression under Christian rule by the Muslims.
In Al-Andalus, yes.
So when
I
you
agree.
say subjection here, there's no compulsion. On the contrary, they were free to worship as they pleased, to trade and live as decent people. All they had to do was to pay the jizya,
No, the compulsion was to
which was a
conquer.
tax that went to liberate.
The compulsion was to conquer.
To liberate.
To liberate. That's your interpretation.
It's
Not
my
all
interpretation.
Islamic empires liberated.
Oh, no, they don't. I
Many
agree.
many
I agree.
Islamic
I'm
empires
not saying-
enslaved the peoples they would
I'm
conquer.
not saying that all empires thereafter were good things, but I am saying in the earliest generations, 100 years, 200 years, that actually it brought freedom to the oppressed Jews and Christians. It also brought a flourishing of science and learning and education.
Yeah, the Islamic Golden Age.
Which only happened because of the Islam allowed free inquiry in
Yeah,
science,
fair enough, yeah.
science, astronomy, and so on. Because the Quran talks about observing
About
the universe and
Khwarizmi,
so on.
with
So
they
not
invented
only
the
did it bring
algorithms,
freedom
algebra,
from oppression,
not invented,
it
they
also
developed
brought
algebra.
learning to a new height in civilization.
Yeah, fair enough.
When
Go
the
on with
Western
that.
Europe was in the Dark Ages, the Islamic Empire was...
In that time, yes.
At that time. Oh, I know it's different now.
No, yeah.
Very different now.
Now it's a mess.
I mean,
Now
during
it's
the
a mess. That's a very
Renaissance,
polite way of putting it.
there was still Islamic empires. But if you're talking about the Islamic Golden Age, I guess you're right. Europe was in tatters.
So
at
there
that
was no
point, and then the
compulsion.
Mongols
On the
invaded
contrary, if
and
you
they
spoke to a
sacked
Jew
Baghdad,
then-
and that was a complete disaster.
If you ask a Jew then, are you under compulsion in your religion because of the Islamic rulers? They'll say, Alhamdulillah, well, they wouldn't use the Arabic, they would actually. They'd say they have been freed from the persecution of the Christians who were about to force them to conform.
Paul, I'm not arguing against that. The thing is, to free them from the prosecution that you're advocating is also a compulsion. It is a compulsion. You might call it a good compulsion, but it is a compulsion.
How's it
Why does it
compulsion?
say it's not a compulsion? Because they're being compelled. We need to free them, whatever. They need to do
How
that.
are the Jews being compelled?
That's the first part. No, not the Jews, the Muslims to conquer the Christians and to conquer the
They
other
were liberating
nations.
them from the injustice
Okay, you
of,
can call it
of
liberate.
corrupt
Look,
empires.
this is a game of
And they brought
semantics now.
justice.
You can call it justice, you can call
I
it
do.
liberation, whatever.
I do.
But it's still a compulsion. It's still they're being compelled,
Compelled to be free.
They're being compelled
That's
to
a
free them
paradox.
if they're
That's a
trying to free
paradox,
them.
isn't it?
No, but look.
Compulsion to be free.
Now my point about the freeing of the other countries is that it seems to me like you're kind of cherry picking a bit, because you're talking about the Jews in Al-Andalus and you're talking about the Catholics in the Byzantine Empire, which I don't completely agree with. I do agree about the Jews in Al-Andalus.
If you want all the sources, talk to Adnan. He'll give you all the references and the classical original
I
sources.
prefer to research it by myself, thank you. But fair enough.
Well, he's got the
Look,
references.
I will trust you. Let's say I will trust you that there was some prosecution of Catholics in the Byzantine Empire, which doesn't seem very...
Catholics, the Roman, they tried to persuade lots of Jews to go fight the Persian, and they didn't go. I mean, this is part of the history. Because at that time,
Well, because the Romans were at war with the Persians.
no, because
with
they
the
tried to go and fight with them, because it's just there's a Catholicism that there is a problem of
Why did you chop this up into like several
inherently
segments?
they
It's
say
very
there's a
long.
blood of
Good luck with the book. Because
Thank you.
Book?
Yeah, I'm writing one.
Two,
in fact. Two in
Two?
fact.
Well, what are you writing about?
One of them is kind of stuck. The other one is flowing more or less. One of them is a story about many different chapters about different characters and the relation between them. But I don't want to spoil anything.
Hang
yet.
on, it's a very thinly veiled Speaker's Corner, is it? No.
No, it's not.
So who's the Mansur character then?
Oh, there are a few main characters, but don't get too attached to them. Game of Thrones style. The other one is about some drawings that I used to make when I was younger. It's like kind of symbolic slash surrealistic drawings, and then the philosophical description of them and what they mean and the definition of what they mean.
Look
That
forward
kind
to
of
seeing
stuff.
it.
Thanks, bro. I'll try to have more, get some more inspiration to write the books. But anyway, enough of the.
Anyway, so I don't think it's a contradiction at all. I think actually it's a very different interpretation of both those verses in the historical context where they were revealed and what happened afterwards. In fact, the subduing was of the unjust rulers. For most people, jizya meant guarantee of freedom of religion. That's the whole point. The Sharia guarantees the Christians and Jews and other people in the book, which meant for the Hanafi school, the main school at the time, basically anyone, whether it be the Zoroastrians or even the Hindus and so on, were given their right to worship freely. But they had to accept the ultimate authority of the Islamic State, this is true, which I don't have a problem with because that meant justice was there. If it was done properly and correctly, they wouldn't tolerate the rule
Just
of law,
as well
divine
as
justice.
not all Islamic empires were good, not all Islamic empires
Some
were
were
bad.
terrible, some were terrible.
Some were horrible, some were pretty good actually for
I
that
agree.
time.
So the question is, did they adhere to the Sharia? If they did adhere to the divine law, then they would have done very well for the people. The justice would have prevailed, unlike the unjust systems of Byzantines and Persian Sassanians beforehand. They were very unjust empires. They oppressed their people.
Sassanid Empire. Why? Why were they so unjust? I mean, they didn't have slavery in their empire.
I know much less about that than I do about the Byzantine Empire, so I don't know the answer.
Okay, fair enough. I don't think I don't think either the Byzantine Empire or the Sassanid Empire were that oppressive. They were relatively good
They were
empires.
to the Jews and the non-Orthodox Christians in the Eastern Empire were periodically oppressed and persecuted by the Byzantine overlords. Islam allowed them, it gave them a legal right under Sharia to practice their faith freely without interference, by law, by right, by a religious right. And how do we know this? If we go back to the Treaty of Medina, which Muhammad had with the Jews and the Christians there, and we still know it, I mean, we have the authentic record still, everyone had their religious rights guaranteed by law, where Muhammad was the head ruler. So this is the Islamic DNA. This is how things should be done.
DNA?
Yeah, I'm using a metaphor here.
I know,
the religious
I got
DNA
it.
is
It's just a funny metaphor.
that unlike in the West historically, even today there isn't true pluralism because there's always campaigning against Sharia courts and so on. Even though we've got Beth Din courts for the Jews, for divorce and inheritance and so on, Muslims just want the same. Oh, no, we can't have that. One law for everyone. Well, in Islam it's much more pluralist. So yeah, you want your particular way of doing it, great. You want your particular way, fine. It's much more accommodating of diversity. Whereas the West can't really accommodate diversity in this, even though it talks a lot about diversity. In practice, it means conforming to a narrow, liberal, secular norm.
What do you mean can't accommodate diversity?
Well, if we wanted elements of Sharia law, Sharia recognised by British law, everyone's going to go no. France would say no. Canada's already said no. America would say no.
There's a big difference between what you're saying
why
and
not?
what happened before with the Islamic conquest. The Muslims were conquering new peoples that were in their lands. There were Christians that those lands were theirs. Now in England it's different because England is not a Muslim country and there indeed are Muslim migrants here, and I don't think they should have the right to practice Sharia law because they are migrants, just like myself.
In Islam, that non-Muslims will have the right by law to practice, inheritance, divorce, and so on, according to their own laws. There's not a right the West will allow its own minorities. So the Islamic ideal is much more tolerant and pluralistic than is the Western, even in the ideal it is. So Islam is much more
allowing
advanced.
it now in Muslim
much more
countries?
advanced. Huh?
Are they allowing those things to happen now in Muslim countries?
I think Historically, in the past they did. I think now you have to look at individual countries. There are many different countries. Maybe in Indonesia they do. I'd have to check. If they don't, okay. But in the past they used to, particularly in the early centuries, when it was much more advanced and much more liberal, for want of a better word, than even modern Western societies are now. In recognising diversity and he's saying, in law, you have a right to do that. We're not going to, even though we disagree with you, we're not going to interfere. The West won't do that. The West say, no, you've got to be like us. You've got to conform one law for all. One size fits all, which of course doesn't work. So you get like in Birmingham.
Look, bro.
In Birmingham, you get the kids
the dhimmis, right?
Yeah.
They still had to obey to Islamic law in the end.
No.
Yes.
No,
Look.
well,
The
which
people
law are we
who
talking
were
about?
in the beginning of the Islamic Empire. Let's go step by step. In the beginning of the Islamic Empire, the Muslims conquered those lands very quickly.
Yeah.
Like it was basically a blitzkrieg through the Eastern Roman Empire and through the Sasanian.
I would say
Empire.
like a knife through butter. Blitzkrieg is Nazi Germany.
It's the same. It's the same.
No, it's not the
method.
same because we didn't destroy. We didn't kill
It's a quick
civilians.
conquest.
We didn't kill civilians.
Oh come on.
A knife through butter. A knife through butter is much better because it was smooth.
No
quick.
civilians killed. Come on, man. Some
Are you
people
saying the
died.
Nazis didn't target civilians in their blitzkrieg? No, they didn't. They didn't. No,
They target. No, look. You're making me defend the Nazis here now.
Yeah, exactly.
But I see what you're doing here. But look, I won't attack the Nazis when they don't deserve to be attacked. When they deserve to be attacked, I will completely attack them. Absolutely, attack them as much as you want. But in the Blitzkrieg, it was called the Blitzkrieg because it was very fast. It was lightning warfare. They needed to quickly go through the lands, attack key points, key strategic points in the enemy army, in the enemy defensive positions. It simply goes against the nature of Blitzkrieg to go after the civilians, to kill them. I mean, maybe some civilians died as collateral damage, but it wasn't targeting
I'm not
the
going to
civilians.
argue that point because it's getting off the subject, as you know.
Fair enough.
So back to the Muslims did not force anyone in the early centuries to convert to Islam. On the contrary, actually, there's a
I mean,
disinclination.
they encouraged them.
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
It actually do you know
Jizya is extra tax.
Precisely, maybe for taxation reasons. So there's a disinclination to force anyone to become a Muslim, even if there's a few economic reasons, as you mentioned. So
Encouragement.
the idea that people were forced by the edge of the sword to convert to Islam is a complete Western myth. Okay, so back to the point, there is no compulsion in religion, which is what the first example was. There's no contradiction.
Do you know what the word compulsion means?
You're asking an Englishman if he knows what the word compulsion means.
Well, I have to ask you because you're. I mean, certainly you know, but I want to see what exactly is the definition you give to the word, because the definition might be slightly different than the one I give to the word. You know what I mean?
There's no compulsion
We both
in
speak
religion,
English.
it says.
No, the word compulsion. Just
Well, to
let's
be
focus
forced
on
to do
that.
something.
To be forced to do something.
And there's no compulsion
It's
in
compulsion
religion.
not to be compelled to do something.
What, maybe in addition to, okay, as you're getting all technical, I'm going to get out my iPhone. I'm going
Fair enough, go ahead,
look
go
the
ahead.
word up now because
Same thing, compelled or forced. Same thing, isn't it?
Well, compelled and forced
I would have said
is
something
quite. I think it's quite different. Compelled is more like encouragement, more like a more light term.
should I read out the definition of
Yeah, go ahead,
compulsion?
Maybe you're right.
Well, we're all right. The action or state of forcing or being forced, as I said, to do something. Constraint. Synonyms, i.e., it means exactly the same thing. Obligation, constraint, force, coercion, duress, pressure, enforcement. I mean, we get the idea. Now, nowhere in the Quran, on the contrary, it says you cannot force anyone to adopt a religion. And the early Muslims, when they went out and conquered and liberated the North Africa and the Levant and so on, never ever forced, compelled anyone to become Muslim.
I disagree with that.
But look. Here, the devil is in
That
the
is the
details.
historical truth.
In this matter, the devil is in the small detail, which is the compulsion, not of the people they were conquering, but of the conquerors themselves.
Oh yeah, they were compelled.
Well,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Their religion was
Absolutely.
compelling them to conquer new peoples, other peoples. So that is
What the
compulsion.
Muslims were bringing divine justice to regimes that were brutally oppressing their subjects. And yes, the oppressors were removed, and I'm terribly sorry if that offends anyone's sensibilities. But yeah. So
you-
the
you're
great
trying-
bulk
look,
of
no,
Muslims,
no.
the great bulk of
Paul.
of Jews and Christians could practice their religion freely. All they had to do was pay the jizya
Fair enough,
to
fair
the
enough,
state.
fair enough.
Yeah, that's what the jizya means.
Yeah, it's a relatively
To
accepting way of.
and often the jizya was less in terms of
Integrating
made
new peoples.
than before. So they had a good deal economically, they had freedom of religion, which they didn't before, and they had justice.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a pretty
But
good
the
deal.
people who were conquering were still compelled.
Of course.
I'm not talking about whether it was a good deal or not. I'm not talking about
They were
whether it
compelling
was
the
just or
oppressors
not.
to get out of the way and allow justice to be
not the
implemented.
oppressors. I'm saying it was the religion of Islam was compelling the Muslims to conquer the other countries, maybe to help them, maybe to just conquer them. Whatever the reason is, that's not what we're arguing about this here.
You're saying there's a contradiction, that's the point.
Yes, the contradiction is they were being compelled by their religion.
Who's we? They, I mean.
The Muslims. They were.
Oh, the Muslims are being
The
compelled.
Muslims were being compelled to conquer new nations by their religious movement. That's what it says in the book. You
passage
must
there where it
attack
says
those
no
who don't believe in
compulsion.
Islam.
It's talking about the passage in Surah Baqarah, isn't it? Second Surah, is talking about compulsion in faith. So you can't be compelled to believe in God or believe in Muhammad or believe in anyone. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about. That's what it's referring to. It's saying you as a good Jew will not be forced to believe in Muhammad, or you as a good Muslim or a good Christian will not be forced to believe in Muhammad or anyone else.
Okay, that's
There's
one.
no
Yeah, okay,
compulsion
fair
in
enough.
religion. That's all it's
That's
saying.
one definition you can give to the compulsion in religion. The compulsion
That
it
is how
gives
it's
to
been
the conquered
understood.
peoples.
That's been understood.
I
That's how
don't
it's
think
understood.
so. I think it's mostly understood in the Quran as compulsion of the people who are the believers, of the Muslims themselves. Like it's compelling the Muslims themselves, it's forcing the Muslims to go there to attack the other peoples, whether they are just or not.
I've never heard anyone
to
say
conquer
that.
them.
I've never heard any tafsir or any Muslim ever say that. I think it's a very odd.
Well, I think it's implied in the
I think it's a very.
Do you want to take a look at the
You see,
Quran?
the point is, in the Islamic tradition, you've got to allow us to define our own scriptures. In the Islamic tradition, it's not.
Don't go that way. Don't
No,
go
but I
that
have to because we don't take texts in isolation. We read them in a tradition. The four schools and how it's understood is never understood. I don't think how you've said it. It's always understood as personal belief is not compelled. If you want to be a Christian, you be a Christian. We will respect that in law, in Sharia, and you have your legal rights, as it was in Medina with the Treaty of Medina. Fascinating. Google it and look at the Wikipedia. Actually has the Treaty of Medina there. Religious.
Fair enough.
The first constitution in history to defend religious rights of freedom of worship is in the Constitution of Medina and the Muslim law.
Right. Not
No,
quite
it's
the first
true.
one.
I
I
mean,
mean, you can
look-
call
look
it
it
the
up.
first one because in
Yeah.
that time there was a lot more religious intolerance. Before those times, like we in the Persian Empire, the Roman Empire, the Alexandrian Empire, there was not much religious intolerance. They were pretty tolerant to other religions.
But I'm talking about a
With
constitution.
the rise of monotheism,
No, I agree with you.
the religious intolerance
No,
rose.
with the rise of Islam, tolerance suddenly massively increased because the Treaty of Medina guarantees religious rights to worship even to non-Christian, non-people of the book. So if you're not a Muslim, like you're a mushrikeen.
They were attacking peoples who were not sharing their religion. Muslims.
When?
When? In the very beginning of their
Can
history.
you give me an example?
Okay, one example. When Muhammad united all of Saudi Arabia, all of Arabia under his rule, they were not Muslims. He attacked them, he conquered them. That's it. They're Muslims now.
Do you know?
Very first example.
Do you know you're right about this? That in the Arabian, Muhammad said in the Arabian Peninsula that there should be. You're right. There should be no polytheists allowed to live in the Arabian Peninsula. You're right about that. You're right.
The impure polytheists, we must give them the final solution.
Example,
No, but everyone.
Sounds familiar.
Final solution. He's always wheeling in the Nazis. This guy, isn't it? Blitzkrieg.
I'm not the
final
only one.
solution.
Well, people keep
You've got
comparing
to
me
wheel
to
Hitler in.
a Nazi, I guess.
When two or three
Because I
people
look
gather
German.
together in Britain, they must always mention Hitler within 5 minutes of the conversation.
what's happened in areas now, there's a 100 years of Islam. There's a book that said if your neighbor they didn't have money to pay the jizya, they used to kill him and they go to the next neighbor and he have to pay it or otherwise they kill him.
Yeah, that's not the Islamic law at all. The Jews. No, well, that's called murder. And if anyone did that, they would be executed. That's called
It's
murder.
warfare, not murder.
No, you're
when you
talking about
conquer new
implementing
people,
the
you
jizya. That's not-
liberate them.
That is called murder. If it happened, it was a criminal act. People commit crimes. I know that. But you see, very few people. Who was exempt from the jizya? All women. Well, women.
I mean, I'm not expert.
I'm talking about obviously apart from
Not Muslims, fair enough.
the elderly, monks,
Cripples, I think.
cripples. people from Ukraine.
Children, of course.
People from Ukraine. The only,
Thank you.
The only
People from the Ukraine were just taken inside the galleons and made row your boat
Well, at least it wasn't,
gently
at
down
least it
the
wasn't the
stream
Nazis.
until you
At
die.
least it wasn't the Nazis that time. So the people who had to pay were able-bodied men who weren't priests or monks or whatever. So it was a particular group of people who had to pay. It wasn't like anyone had to pay. It wasn't like the poll tax in Britain under Thatcher. You probably won't remember that, but where everyone had to pay, the same amount as well. Here it was just people. If you were too poor to pay it, you didn't pay it. By the way, it was set at a certain limit. So it was a very just system. I don't have a problem with it at all. Okay, criminals went around behaving criminally. I'm not disputing that, but that's certainly not what the Sharia says you should do. And murder is still a crime in Islam. Always was.
Paul, look, I think we're kind of losing the cohesion of the conversation because I'm talking about compulsion in Muslims to do what they're to be compelled, to be forced to do what their
That
book
passage is
tells
not
them.
talking about Muslims being compelled. It's talking about religious allegiance.
It is.
Well,
I think it also includes the Muslims and the non-Muslims.
we have to disagree on that. I've not read any tafsir.
Why don't we see the passage? Why don't we take a look at the passage? I think it would be more helpful. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. Let's just take a look.
What is it? 282 or
Right,
something?
so 256. There is no compulsion in religion.
Sorry, what's your aim? Is I don't understand. You bring these.
I mean, we were.
He's talking about. He's showing the contradictions in the
Yeah,
Quran.
we were to speak about this
all the
before,
book-
but we never
all
ended up
all
speaking.
good books. It's old and they've got contradiction in them. I mean, you just
Well, that's what we're talking about here.
just
Right, the context. I think
This is a more friendly discussion, not like the usual in your
we're going to
throat.
beat each other up later.
Yeah,
just
we
for
are,
the
we are.
cameras, we're going to be nice.
Yeah, we're gonna play peaceful for the camera.
I've got my knife. Well, there is no compulsion of religion. Then it says, verily the right path has become distinct from the wrong path. Whoever believes in Tagut, that means kind of polytheism, and believes in Allah, then he has grasped the most trustworthy hold that will never break. And Allah is all hearer. So it's talking about belief here, about going on the right path is distinct from the Tagut is anything worshipped other than God, like polytheists, false deities.
Well, you see, right path has become distinct from the wrong path.
Yeah.
I think this kind of mentions the righteous ones, the ones who
Yeah.
follow the great path of Islam and blah blah blah, and they
But
they
if
are
you
being
look at
compelled to a certain extent. There is no compulsion, but they.
the verse
you
before
need to do
says
what
Allah,
the book tells
there
you.
is none that has right to be worshipped, but He, the ever-living, the one who sustains and protects all, no slumber. There's an amazing verse here, and then there's no compulsion to believe this. The right path becomes very. It's very clear what the right path is.
Look what the
Becomes
next
distinct.
part says.
Yeah.
Allah the Wali, protector or guardian of those who believe. He brings them out from darkness into light. But
for those who
as for those who disbelieve, there are awliya, supporters and helpers,
Of the false
and
deities.
tagut,
Yeah,
false
polytheists.
deities and false leaders. They bring them out from light into darkness. Okay, so here it speaks about the Wali, the protector of the guardian, those who believe, about those who believe. I think it's no coincidence that he's first mentioning the ones who believe and then mentioning the ones who disbelieve, because it means both of them. There is no compulsion in
It's
religion
not political
for both of them.
power or conquest. This is to do with belief in God and following the right path, believing in the one true God. But there's no compulsion in this life. You're not going to be told you must, or you're going to be hurt. But it's clear. He says it's crystal clear. It's become distinct. The right path has become distinct.
But he's saying right path and wrong path, man. Like, it's kind of forcing you to go for this path is right. If you don't do this, you're in the wrong. You're the bad guy. You're gonna get conquered. You're gonna have to pay the jizya.
It's a warning. But we're not gonna, it's a warning.
Sounds like a big compulsion to me, honestly.
Well, but it's not. It's because there's no ultimate force. But it's a warning that if you don't go in a certain direction, there will be consequences.
Well, to begin with, all that it takes for Muslims, according to the Quran, for Muslims to conquer you, is for you to not be a Muslim. It doesn't matter if you are righteous or not. It's not a Muslim. It says you must attack those who don't believe in Islam. It doesn't say attack those who are not righteous. It says those who do not believe in Islam. It's not necessarily about justice. It's just about
It's a bit more
religion.
complicated than that, by the way, because we're not looking at the whole of Islamic teaching here. it's perfectly right in Islam to have treaties with other states. There were, even during Muhammad's time, he had a treaty with other states. So it's not like you are told to go out and fight every non-Muslim country. It's not what it is. You can have pacts and treaties with non-Muslim countries. No, but even if they wanted to. So you have pacts with some. You have a non-belligerent. You have peace treaties, like Muhammad did with some other tribes, and they did in the early centuries. So it's not like you're going out and attacking everyone.
That's kind of what they did, honestly. They attacked the Sassanids when attacking also the Eastern Romans.
But they had attacked the Muslims in Arabia, the Romans as well, and actually excursion threats from the Romans.
But the Romans didn't really
they whether it's a preemptive attack or defensive attack, if you know what I mean, to preempt further attacks, they went on the offensive and they completely miraculously defeated two major world empires.
Not that miraculously. They were battered down by warring between each other. It wasn't that miraculous. I mean, they had some good victories.
I think it was amazing. There's
some impressive victories.
Clearly,
they were
blessed by God because they defeated the Roman Empire.
It was Alexander the Great blessed by God. I don't think he was. I think he was just a brilliant strategist. He had his professional arm.
And what happened when he died? All his generals
it was divided by
it was divided up. So that was the problem.
You know what he said when he died? When he was asked who should inherit the empire, he said the strongest. Alexander didn't really give that much of a shit if the empire held together or not. He was a little bit of a narcissist.
He thought a Nazi.
Did
you say a Nazi?
Narcissist.
No, a narcissist.
Oh, you're hearing Nazi everywhere, no?
No, but he believed, there's good evidence that he actually believed that he was divine.
Yeah,
he believed he was God.
His mom kind of convinced him of that. What is this?
Oh God, we hope in your hearts that you never walk alone. Champions of 2019, come on Liverpool, come on club. Third time lucky for him, it has to be done. Six cabbies coming to Anfield and that's that.
Tell him more, sing.
Come on Liverpool.
Sing it.
Liverpool. Soccer Films, do not subscribe. That's it.
Could I share one of my poems? I've come all the way from America.
Another poem, okay, go ahead.
Brother Muslim.
Look, I have a soft spot for poems. I've been fully done for my poems.
I'm getting
anyway, bro, it was a good conversation. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And maybe again we'll have it.
Okay, I'll listen to your poem, bro. I'll listen to your poem.
Is the camera on?
No, it's cool. Just go ahead.
Is the camera on?
Yeah.
After this, we're wrapping up.
Okay.
So make it a banger.
Okay. All of us are from Adam, be black, brown or white. Got to learn how to live together, not to hate, let love abide. Got to learn how to live together, not to hate, let love abide. Diversity is a beauty we got to realize. Diversity is a beauty we got to realize. No matter what your race or religion, walk side by side. No matter what your race or religion, walk side by side. We got to prove that we are human and God has made us white. Not to hate but love each other for mankind to survive.
That's very good, bro. No joke. I have to learn with you, bro. I have to learn with you. It's like a song, man. It's like a song. It's very nice. It's very nice, bro. May I have one?
You know, I'm going to compose this song, and basically we have a white guy, a brown guy, and a black guy singing it together.
Nice.
And that's the idea.
Will be an interesting image.
Right. So hopefully.
Thanks, bro.
This is my first time, and it could be my last time because I'm leaving for USA tomorrow because I just came.
I wish you good luck, man. It's a good poem.
So put it all up if you can.
Yeah.
Right? So
They will. They put all the things in. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Good luck, guys. Good luck in the US. You see, guys, good poem. Learn how to appreciate good poetry. Next week, I'll bring a new one.
Content over everything. From your melody. Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. Listen. COE. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. I don't even listen to Sky TV. I just listen to COE. Man, don't listen to BBC. Man, don't listen to ITV. I don't even listen to Sky Man, just listen to COE. Man, just listen to COE. Man, just listen to COE.